I first met Kris Kristofferson after many years of him being a hero to me in the house I grew up in. So the meeting with him was scary to begin with, kind of a starstruck type of thing. But I actually really met Kris in '95 at the Martin Luther King March here in Atlanta. A friend of mine said, "Hey, I'm going to be marching this year, and I want you to march with me." And I said, "I would love to." And she said, "I also want you to know that your hero is going to be singing a song that he wrote about Martin Luther King at the, event." And she told me Kris was going to be there. And she said, "You ought to bring a CD." And I was like, "Oh, I don't know, man. I'm really not that guy.
Yeah.
I don't like to do that, especially because you don't want to be left with what could possibly happen. And it also could just backfire and like that be the way you met the hero that you wanted and it didn't work out, right?" So we do the march, he sings his song, the whole thing's finishing. I see him start to part away and walk down, I'm trying to remember what street it was, it doesn't matter right now, but he was walking downhill, I remember, away from the church. And he had his what I would call the Kris Kristofferson suit, which is, instead of just black jeans and a black t-shirt and his old boots, it's the black t-shirt, black jeans, old boots, and a leather blazer with sunglasses. And that's when you know he's dressing up. And so he was always, when he would show, and he was there every year at King's birthday. Even when he wasn't singing, he would be there sitting in the church. It was really cool, just up until several years back. So yeah, he's walking down, and I kind of jog up with my CD, because she basically made me. She said, "You've got to do this. You may never get a chance to see this guy again, and this record's great. Give it to him." I'm like, "Okay." So, "Excuse me, Mr. Kristofferson." Yeah. "Sir, I know this is probably the last thing you want, but this is a CD I made last year, and I'm real influenced by you, and I just wanted to give it to you. I don't really have a place to put this, well, okay, thanks, man." And it was that kind of thing. I'm like, "Oh, no. Oh, no. This is exactly what I didn't want to happen, And so I go home and kind of bummed out. A couple months goes by, and all of a sudden, I hadn't put my phone number in there, just in case. A couple months goes by, and I get a phone call, and it is Kris Kristofferson on the other line. And I couldn't believe it. In fact, I told him when he said it's Kris, I said, "Hello," and he said, "Is Shawn Mullins there?" I said, "This is he." He said, "This is Kris Kristofferson." I said, "Bullshit." Because I figured one of my buddies was just playing a joke on me, because they always were, And he goes, there was a pause, and he goes, "No, this is really me, man." He didn't even laugh. He was like, "No, man, you're kind of wasting my time here, This is really me. I'm bothering to call you right now." So I couldn't believe it. He said, "Man, I don't have anything to offer you except this. You're a great songwriter and an original thinker, and don't ever stop doing what you're doing." And he cited the song Pandora that I'd written with my dad, and another song on the record, the lyrics, he quoted a couple of lyrics, and he said, "Just don't ever stop doing what you're doing, man." And I got to tell you, man, it changed me. I knew at that point, if he says I can do this, I know I can do this, whatever that means. I'm going to do this on my own. I'm going to make a living somehow with music. I know I can, whatever that means. And
when he says he has nothing to give you, he just gave you more than you ever dreamed of.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. So that's how we really met. And then years went by. So that was in '95. So in the December of '98 is the next time I see him. And it's because my song and record has come out. I've put Sunday Morning Coming Down on the album. It's sold a shit ton of records. He's aware of that. His daughter becomes a fan as well. Now I'm invited to Hawaii, to where they live, and I'm hanging out at the house with Kris, right? Yeah, it's amazing. And I'm nervous. I'm chain smoking pot, because I don't know. I figured he did too. He'd already quit. He was like, "Hey, you need to figure out another way of ingesting that." I'm like, "Really? I thought you smoked pot." He goes, "Well, I used to until I had a heart attack on an airplane. Had to get, quadruple bypass." He goes, you need to figure out another way of ingesting it. And I'm like, yes, sir. You know, and I could tell that he gave a shit enough to say that. But we were looking at the sunset, and which was neat, man. I mean, his house was on a mountaintop overlooking the sunset in Hawaii, you know. But it's not a fancy place. It's like kind of cabin-esque and real cool. And the family's just out of control cool. Just the sweetest, down-to-earth people, everybody. Bunch of kids. And
is his place right next to Willie's?
Willie was on the other side of Maui. His place, he had Muhammad Ali nearby, and he had Jim Nabors nearby.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And he said that Muhammad Ali was the sweetest man he'd ever met in his entire life. He told me that. And he had his gloves, signed gloves, right there by the front door. I'll tell you one regret I had about getting to know Kris. I have a regret, and I don't share it with many people because it's a weird thing, but I guess I'm saying it for other people to hear if they're musicians that get this kind of offer or opportunity from someone else that's their hero. When I'm sitting there in his living room and we got to swap a few songs, and I felt really stupid, you know. He's doing new songs, and I tried to do a couple new songs, but he was very sweet. And the guitar that we're using is the one that has all these carved names on it. It's got it's got Willie, it's got Bob Dylan, it's got everybody on there, man. Johnny Cash, it just goes on and on. Joni Mitchell. They're all on this guitar carved. So after a couple of songs, he takes out his pocket knife and goes, hands me the guitar. And I said, I just don't think I've put enough miles on it to do that yet. I don't think I'm there. And he kind of looked at me like that, you know, and my wife's like looking at me like, are you out of your mind, you know? But I do have a regret not doing that, looking back on it now. But when I look at the time and where I was and what I felt, I did the right thing at the time. I didn't think I matched up to Janis Joplin. How about that? I didn't, you know, I wasn't worthy of being on that same guitar with all these people that a lot of them are dead. I'm like, man, this is like serious stuff, you know, and I appreciate it. Of course, Todd Snyder had carved his name in there. I saw that. I saw Todd on there, you know.
I bet Todd didn't pause.
Oh, Todd was like, hell yeah. But,
we love you, Todd.
We do love you, man. But yeah, that is a regret that I have that I didn't. And I think the reason I even mention that is to not feel sorry for me, but if a young upcoming person that feels like, I guess the point I'm trying to make is he knew and saw something in me that I didn't know and see. He was ahead of me, and he had the wisdom, and I should have trusted it and said thank you, and just because I kind of turned down the honor. And that was a learning process for me. I've never done that since, but I never had that kind of opportunity since. Right. Yeah, and I would do it now.
Yeah.
I would do it now. Not because I'm so worthy, but now I understand why he wanted me to do it more. But I'm older, I'm more experienced, I understand. I didn't really get it. I was like, really, me? That's how I felt, you know? So that's, I don't know why I wanted to share that. It's not funny, you know, like a lot of your stuff that's entertaining is funny here, but.
That's beautiful, though.
Okay, right on.
That's human, and that's everything. I think that's beautiful. I appreciate you sharing it, because I think.
I don't tell many people that, but now I have.
But it says a lot about Kris. That's part of that neat thing about those guys, is there was I don't know, man. It felt like there was a little bit of a brotherhood, and there was a way that they did business. Yeah. Whatever business was, their day-to-day lives, there was a way that they wanted to do it. A bar that they would set, maybe they would fall short of it sometimes, but I don't know, to be included in that is freaking huge.
It was huge, and yeah, it's nice to remember. It's not that important to me that my name's on that guitar, but what an honor to be asked, and it does show you a lot about what kind of man he was, and to just be that kind of giving and generous with that. Say, yes, there are, Janice and others are on here, but I want you to sign it too, you know?
Yeah.
It's cool, man. He was a cool guy. He was a special man. He was like, again, like Larry John was, felt like when I was around him, felt like a second dad. And I don't know that he meant it that way. That's just how it felt. I remember I was getting some acting audition offers to read for some big films. Like all of a sudden that started happening. You know, I've got a platinum record and the videos, and all of a sudden, you know, agents are calling and going, hey, you know, we want you to read for Cold Mountain. We want you to read for this and that. These some big movies that ended up coming out later. Well, I wasn't landing anything. I'd go in there and read for it and just bomb. I mean, I was stinking, you know, like in an audition, I would just get awful, just tore up. So I'm in there trying to get through the auditions, and I never landed anything. So the next year I see Kris in December again in Hawaii, staying at the guest house. We go to watch his son, who I think is now a professional wrestler, but he was wrestling in high school wrestling at the time, Jody. And we were watching him in a high school wrestling match, and he said, so how's it going? And I said, it's going pretty good. I said, I'm starting to get these acting offers, you know, and I acted a little bit in high school and middle school, you know, I did a little bit of stuff, but I don't have any kind of studying behind me at all. I don't know what I'm doing. And I said, you know, I said, I read for Cold Mountain. And he goes, oh, okay, I know that book. And he said, I said, an agent called my casting director. Yeah. A casting director called my agent and said, Shawn's got some talent, but he needs to take an auditioning class because he falls apart in front of that camera. And right when I said that, Kris looks over at me and he goes, that ain't a real good sign, man. If you got to take some lessons, man, probably not a good sign at this point, because they're like after you already. You know, you need to like have the natural talent. And I love that about him. Yeah, I thought that was awesome. Yeah, I kind of chuckled, and he didn't laugh at all. He was like, "I'm just telling you." Yeah.
You mentioned To Beat the Devil.
Yeah.
I've had a couple different stretches in my life where I was completely obsessed with that song. And like a little over 20 years ago, before we moved to Nashville, I was listening to that a few times a day, where I get really obsessive sometimes. And Amy would just like, oh my God, please don't play that again. And but something about it, and I don't really know what, I was just captivated by the story, by his imperfect voice, you know, but the beautiful writing, and it's still, there's something haunting about it, and I don't completely know what that is. What grabs you about it, if anything in particular?
Well, in the recording itself of Kris doing that song is like you say, it's a one of a kind kind of thing. The dry vocal on the spoken part, the way the vocal wettens up on the chorus. But I know I'm speaking technical terms, but it ends up becoming this mood change in the song too. Is it
Bob Johnson produced that? Because it's a lot like the early Leonard Cohen stuff, where there's a sound to it, and I think Bob Johnson was a lot of that, and I think Columbia Studio A was a lot of that, but it has an aesthetic about it.
It does.
That things haven't really had since. You know, there's like a time and a place that song has. That's one of the things that grabs me, besides Kris just being...
Yeah, and the gentle guitar backing by what's his name playing in the background, kind of kind of doing little off beats, which to Kris is real simple, ding ding dong ding dong. There's this nice little I don't know, I think the lyrics alone, I mean that song's lyrics alone, and then when I think about what it means to me anyway, It means no matter what you follow, you must follow your bliss and do this for your own soul. Kris talked about William Blake, and that he said something to the effect of, if you're an artist or whatever it is that you are meant to do on this planet, if you don't do that, then you're going to suffer for eternity. And there's so many words it says that, and I'm like, wow, that's pretty intense, you know. But I think of it that way, and I think that song to me is like that. It's kind of telling the truth of that, and that no matter what, even if you can't make a dime doing it, you might still have to do it, you know, for the survival of your own soul, you know.
Well, when Kris wrote that, he was working at the Tally Ho Tavern on Music Row, and that's where he walked when he swallowed his pride and walked inside a bar. It was the Tally Ho Tavern, and he was living across the street in an apartment. And my buddy Sean Camp, hey Sean.
Hey Sean.
Sean brought me over there and was like, "This is where the Tally Ho was. It's been torn down, and there's like new things built up in its place because that's what Nashville does." And I think the apartments were torn down too, but Columbia Studio was like right there also.
Right.
But his whole life was right there. But it's really neat to walk right along there and realize all of this is real, man. All this stuff he's writing about, and you know, and then you start thinking about, okay, you know, the devil bought him a beer. What the hell's up with that? You know.
Yeah. And that intro that he gives about, you know, Johnny Cash in the hallway of the recording studio and him being in a really bad place, and he recites poetry to Kris, and then Kris gets the notion to write that song, you know, and it's like it's an interesting guy, man. He was really an interesting man. I think all of them were.
Yeah.
I think they were all, it was a different time. And I'm sure we're pretty interesting, all of us too. But to us, it's them. It's like, it's all of those cats. It's, I mean, my dad he'd worked for the railroad. My mom was a school teacher. My dad kind of looked like Kristofferson in a way. He had the beard, maybe not quite as handsome, but he had kind of that look. It was like Grizzly Adams meets Kris Kristofferson, kind of, you know. And he drove a motorcycle to work, and kind of a weekend hippie, you know, back in the early 70s, late 60s. And so my dad had a second job at Rich's department store in Atlanta. I don't know if you ever heard that. It'd be like a Macy's or a Davidson's, but it was called Rich's. And he worked in the audio visual where they sell records and stereos. And we always had these great records in the house growing up, including the great Kristofferson records. And a couple of years ago, I asked my sister, we were talking about all the great records and how they influenced me and all of us probably. And she said, well, you know, Dad stole all that stuff. And I said, what? And she said, yeah, he couldn't have bought all that stuff working for the railroad back then. On the weekends, him and his friend Pat, they had a little thing going, and they would take equipment out of the warehouse, and so they both had great stereo systems in their house. We did. We even had a reel-to-reel player, like in 1970. It was ridiculous. And we had this killer record collection because every Tuesday when the new records would come in, and Dad was working that shift, he would listen to the promotional copies they'd have for the store, and if the record was any good, he'd bring that copy home. So he was taking the promotional copy. So all of our records had those little holes in the corner, you know.
Yeah.
But we had all the good ones. He would only take the ones that were damn like the best ones, like Isaac Hayes' Black Moses, Jesus Christ Superstar, you know, A Happening in Central Park, Barbra Streisand, all this like phenomenal stuff from that time, you know, the Beatles. And so Kris Kristofferson I really met when I was a baby. That's how I feel, because the voice, my dad's voice was a bass voice like that. It almost seems kind of interchangeable. The poetry, To Beat the Devil is a song that's followed me around my whole life. It's kind of part of my thing. So that's been an important song for me.